So, going to start our today's lecture. If you have any question regarding to previous lectures, kindly let me know.
Previous lecture, so far, no. Alhamdulillah.
Everything is clear?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
So, in this lecture, we will see how we will apply software engineering approach to software development for information management. Now, what is project management? I think I have told you in the previous lectures. For example, as you can take it as the leader of a class. Now you are a leader of your group or class. Now your duty is that your team member should complete their assigned tasks on time. They should meet the deadline properly. Similarly, in software development, project management is something that you have taken a deal from your client to complete that particular project, like if whether it is a application, web application, anything. You are the leader and it's your responsibility to complete that project on time within the budget. You should know how to allocate the resources. You should know whether your team is going towards the project progress or not. So these are all the things that a project manager have to handle. Now, in software project management, you need to focus on how to plan that project, how to monitor that project, and how you can control that software project. Okay. Now, it's your ability to plan and lead that software project. Like, for example, for the creation of schedules, how you will utilize the resources if there is any risk. For example, you have only one person who is responsible for handling the front end or back end work. But due to some reason, he left your team. Now that is a risk that whether your project will complete on time or not. So you might face such kind of risk during your software development phase. So you should have a proper planning. Means if you're working with plan A, your plan B should also be ready. So this is what a good project manager will do, that if there is some problem, then they are going to deal with that. Now, we know that during the developmental phase, there are different technical complexities. Maybe this system will not work at some point. Maybe there will be a lot of bugs. Maybe due to some reason, some of your team members left. So there can be a lot of complexities you might face. So, as a project manager, you should know how to do the effective communication among your teams, your clients, and the stakeholders. So that is the important duty of a project manager. Now we have some fundamentals of software project management. Now we know what is software project manager, what is its role and duty. Now we have some fundamentals that we have to learn in software engineering. Resource planning and practice. So these are the three main fundamentals. A good project manager should know how to plan the project, how to allocate or manage the resources, and how to track the progress of the project as well as the team members. Okay. Now, we will study these one by one. Now, what is plan? A client reach you And for example, that clients wants a software for their business. Now they are running a small business. Now we take a simple example here. Now let's suppose they are running a small coffee shop. They want a software that can keep track of their sales, that can manage the inventory, that can analyze the yearly profit and loss. So such kind of features they want. And they also want a AI recommendation system that would recommend the best time to sell the product, something like that. Now they reach out to you. You said, okay, we will able to develop this software according to your requirements. But before starting the actual development, we learned in the software development phase that we need a perfect plan. So firstly, you will define the objective. What is the objective? Objective means the aim. What you are wanting from that project. So your objective is to meet the client needs, means that software should be able to do all the requested features of the client. So now you know your objective. Then project scope. What is the project scope? Means the limitations where that software can be used. Now it is for a small coffee shop business, then it will be limited to that business only. We cannot apply or use that software anywhere else. So you have to define your project scope. You have to establish your project objective, means what is my objective. Then you also have to estimate the schedule, means in which time I am going to complete that project. Okay, so let me show you a real world documentation so you can get a good idea how these things are done. So if you remember, in the previous lecture, I told you about the user documentation, means the user manual, which contains all the information related to your project, software project planning, that scheduling, that resources. Okay. So in planning, you have to manage the capacity, the time, the cost, the quality. So in software project management, we used to manage, plan, and organize that project. So for that purpose, mostly we made such kind of user manuals in which we mentioned that how we are going to deal with the project, in which time will be required to gather the requirement, to analyze, to design, to code, and till go towards the deployment. So we use different kinds of chart in software project management. We have pie chart, Gantt chart, different are they. The purpose of Gantt chart is to define the deadlines when you are going to meet the milestones. Like for example, here, a specific time here in the Gantt chart, we have a column for the tasks that you have to perform, then the months and the date when you are going to complete it. Like for the requirements from this duration for like about 20 days, you will gather the necessary requirements for that. Whether it is the background information about that project, whether to gather the main information from that client. So it may include that. Then analysis. Now, what is analysis? In the analysis phase, we will analyze that whether we can complete that project or not. Okay. In analysis, maybe in analysis where you think that the features the client are requesting, maybe you are not expert in dealing with AI or recommendation systems. So in the analysis phase, you think that I cannot do that, so I'm going to reject this project. So in the analysis phase, you decide whether I can complete or whether I can do. Then it comes the documentation phase. So this is the complete documentation. So we will review this later. So in the documentation phase, we will create a user manual that how we are going to complete that project. So where we were, just a minute. Here. Then the documentation is completed. In the documentation, you guide your client that this is the project, these are the specifications, and we are going to complete this in this time duration. Okay. So your documentation is completed. Then comes the designing phase. Now in designing, we use different kinds of diagrams to visualize that how the project will look like. Means you will build the architectural diagram. So let me show you that too. So here you can see that this is the duty of the project manager to show what are the deliverables, means the list of the risks that you can face, your team members, different feasibility reports. What is a feasibility report? Means whether you can complete that project or not. We include everything and every detail there. So then we also include the non-functional and functional requirements. Means what are the specific requirements of the project? We will include that here. Now, I told you that uh, the duty of the project manager is to manage the budget or the cost. Now, how they will do that? In project management and also in software engineering, we use different models to estimate the cost of that specific software. So we also do this by two functions. Like the first type is the functional point analysis. Uh, we use two techniques to calculate the budget of the software. Here, you will input the external and internal requirement. For example, we are building a software for a small coffee business. So first of all, you will add some external inputs. For example, it can be the domain cost, it can be the labor cost. At low level, how many points you have to cover. At average or at high level, what will be its cost. So typically, you will add all of these points here. Then these are the formulas, like some adjustment factors. Then a function is created. Then on the basis of this function, like here, you can see that we check the labor rate, what will be the productivity parameter. And then after doing all of these calculations, so if someone wants to be a project manager, then they have to take a certain course how to do the functional point analysis. So we are not going to deeply dwell in this because I'm using it just for the sake of the knowledge. And then after doing all of the calculations, we come at a point where we decide the cost. So you can see that here, this is another type of estimating the cost. And finally, on the basis of the activity, like for the scope, you decide that this value will be taken, this amount will be taken. Then for the requirement analysis, there will be specific amount. For the development, this amount. And then on the specific average cost, you decide that in this specific amount, my software is going to be ready. So these are the things our project manager will do. Then in software, so in this lecture, we are learning about software project management. Then the second thing or the third thing is the task dependencies. Means which tasks you are going to perform and what will be their dependencies. Means in this scope, I told you about the scope. So the things that you will include is to determine the scope of your project, who is going to sponsor your project. So everything will be defined in the first task. Then in this dependency table, you include all of your tasks that you have to perform. Then in the second, you will be review your software specification, the hardware specification. Now it is for a small coffee business. So you are going to review what are the specifications with the team. For example, maybe some team members required a high budget. For example, you have only one person who is the programmer of your team, who will write the actual code of that, but the salary that they are demanding from you is very high. or maybe they are requiring a specific hardware from you or a specific software from you. So how you are going to deal with that? So this will be your task too. So you include that as a project manager, that this is my task too. Then in the third phase, I told you about, you have to design. You will review your software, you will define your hardware, you will develop a prototype for that specific coffee shop business. You will review the functional requirements, what are they? And at the end, after defining all the tasks, what you will do, you will do the actual coding and then develop the software. So this is how the things are done. So not we jump direct to actual coding. Before the actual coding, this is the duty of the project manager to define the durations when everything is done. For that purpose, this is called the network design diagram, that is mostly used to, or activity diagram, to define how you are going to complete each and every point. Like for the requirement, you define the duration of 21 days. Like for the documentation, coding, analysis, everything, you define a duration for each and everything. Then you also define a path. Like you will start from here. First, I will do this, then second activity, then third activity. Then after doing all of this, I will end this project. So these are all the things our software engineer do. So this is the path. Like activity A will start from this, then from requirement, I will jump to analysis or design. So in this way, your designer sketch something. Okay. So then you explain your team members here. Let me show you some diagrams also. Yes. So if you remember, I told you about the use case diagram. So what is the purpose of the use case diagram? Is to show how many functions will be there in your, you can say, software use case diagram. So if you remember in the previous lecture, I told you about the use case diagram. The purpose is to the purpose of the use case diagram is to define the functions, that what you are going to include in that application. Now, why we need this software diagrams? These diagrams are known as SWOT diagram. This is a specifically another subject in software engineering field. But here we need that before starting the actual coding, to understand the scenario, that how many things that you are going to include to make the things clear to your client. For example, in that coffee shop business application, there might be a user account or an admin account. So what the function, if we talk about user authentication, like the admin or the person who is going to use the software have to sign up or to sign in, and what they will do if they forget the password. So in use case diagram, we have two things, a primary actor and the secondary actor. The person who is directly using that application is the primary actor, and the thing, whether it is a non-living thing like a database or computer, or whether another person who is there just to monitor that, is the secondary person. Now we know that the person who is the end user, who is going to operate that specific software, will be the primary user. So we create a primary user here, and then we know that the database can be used to store all the information. So we also include the database outside as the secondary actor. Then if we scroll down, we have another use case diagram for admin. So whether it is a business application, whether it's another application, if it is like LMS, so we know that we have different accounts or dashboard for the specific students, for teachers, and for admins. So for admin, there should also be another use case, means how the admin will interact with that system, means how they're going to sign in. If they forget password, then they will revisit the database. If the password match, then the admin will again sign in. So in software engineering, like booking, to book a table, something like that, you will view the booking, whether it is included or not. If yes, okay, update the report. So these are the person who have booked a table there in your restaurant, and These are the primary actors to check whether the table is booked or not. So in this way, the use cases are, so we have multiple. Now, that was the use case diagram. Now we have other also different diagram like sequence diagram. We have many other. Now I will explain a specific purpose of the sequence diagram is how the user is going to interact with the system. This is the purpose of the sequence. In this here, the sequence diagram will explain the series of steps. For example, here the user wants to use that application. What the user will do? User will create an account. For example, now let's take a simple example here. You are going to use any social media application. Let's take a simple example. Let's talk about Facebook. So on Facebook, what you will do? You create an account first. Okay, you have created. The system will check your credentials for entering the required data. They required your email, passwords, everything. So you will enter that. The system will check in the database whether that required data is authenticate, verified, or validate or not. You might wonder that whenever you enter an email, they send back you an email for the verification purpose. So that is come from the database of that application. Okay. If the data is validated, so there is some kind of loop, account will be created successfully. Else, they will say that the data that is entered is invalid and you might have to try again. So this is how you can explain different functionalities of the application through the sequence diagram.